All right, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here today for the basics of Overdrive. And I'm going to turn it on over to Patty, as well as we have two guests today, Claire from Overdrive, as well as Kristen, who will be, looks like she was having some connectivity issues and will be back on shortly. So go ahead. Yeah. Patty, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, we'll just wait one more minute or so, because we had 9 people signed up, so we'll wait just a little bit. And I'm just gonna share a brief history of everything, and then I'm gonna pass it off to Kristen, and she's gonna talk more about other things. So, but I'll start sharing well, I'll wait and see if we have a few more people.
I would just go ahead since we are focused
Recording?
on, yeah, and we're recording.
Okay, you're right. I don't know these. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And I just wanted to say welcome. My name is Patty Sussman. I work at the Newburgh Free Library. As part of the Central Library, one of my duties is to handle the ePool Consortia, which I have been a part of since 2010. I'd like to welcome you all. If you're new to ordering, this is basically for you. We decided to structure these advantage classes a little bit differently because some people have been ordering now for a while, and then some people are new and they don't know anything about ordering for e-content, which is different than ordering from Baker and Taylor and from Ingram. So I'm just going to see if I can, so this is a basic agenda. We might go off a little bit. I'm going to talk about the brief history of the consortia, the difference between Advantage Plus versus the ePool. And then Kristen's going to talk more about ordering, access types, what kind of ordering types there are for Overdrive, how to make a cart for your library, reports to look for and produce, and saving a search and automating a cart. So Grace was talking about this the other day with me. So the Overdrive contract was signed in 2005 and was made available to staff mid-year 05. And then it was officially launched in January 2006 with a grant that Robert Hubscher, the previous RCLS director before Grace, had gotten. So I personally started ordering for that in 2010. I started ordering audiobooks for it. But in 2015, we started a funding pool, and the RCLS consortia was born, and it started purchasing materials for everyone. So all of the libraries contribute a portion based on a formula that Grace knows and Stephen knows. I don't know what exactly the formula is. It's based on usage and population, etc. That all of the libraries contribute to, and we purchase for everyone. So I want to say that it started with about 400 individual items and 640 copies. As of today, we have over 44,856 individual items and over 94,154 copies overall. And that includes Advantage titles that are purchased by your library. When the consortia started, e-content circulation grew by about 65%, and some libraries saw a growth of over 100%. So it is a valuable resource for everyone. So this is a very confusing thing that I just want to repeat over and over. There are 2 types of e-content ordering. There's the ePool, which orders for the consortia. That is based on selectors that are chosen by System Services. They get selected every year, or if people drop out, there are new people coming in, and it gets approved. We'll be approving, I believe, on the 23rd of January. And so these selectors that are picked, and it encompasses all of the counties of the RCLS system. They order for the pool. Gosh, sorry. So I just wanted to let you know, because people get confused by this a lot. So if you have an account, and you know, if you get an account, and they can get an account through just contacting you, Kristen, correct? An Advantage account, okay? So if you have an Advantage account, it has ADV in the extension. So just remember that, because people get confused and they'll be like, oh, I ordered for the pool. And I'll be like, no, you didn't. You ordered for your library. So ADV is the extension for Advantage Plus. If you become a selector, there's a difference between the two. When you're ordering for the consortia as a whole, it has an LIB in the login as opposed to the ADV extension. So this gives you an idea. So the e-pool, we order adult, juvenile material, youth services material. I'm sorry for the terminology that's used. And then it gets shared. It gets shared by everyone. So everybody gets shared by all of the libraries in RCLS. So Joanna from RCLS orders also for the pool. She orders the youth material, and I order for the adult along with the other pool selectors. And Jen also orders occasionally for outreach, and she's helping me with ordering audiobooks as well. I also order adult nonfiction with separate CLSA money, which is Central Library Services Aid money. So that's why if any of you are a part of the e-content listserv, you'll see me saying that I've ordered carts for that, but I haven't ordered any pool carts yet because nothing's been approved yet. So we'll be waiting for that meeting after the 23rd. So this is the difference between Advantage Plus and the ePool consortia. You know, the ePool consortia is shared by all, and you have these Advantage Plus accounts where your library actually owns these books. But if somebody from your library isn't using it, it gets it allows you to share your book or audio book with other libraries. And I'll go into that a little bit more because I know that's not, you know, there's a little bit more to it. So the ePool is a shared collection, like libraries have been doing since the beginning of time. We share our resources for the greater good. Trust me, it's a good thing for your library. And I just want to reiterate again, if you're not part of the e-content listserv, you should subscribe to this if you want to be up on news about e-content. And you can just email Martha Sullivan at RCLS if you'd like to be a part of that. So e-pool ordering for the pool, typically it used to take place on the 1st and 15th of the month. It doesn't anymore because, as most of you know, most new titles come out on a Tuesday. So since last year, I've been trying to place card orders mainly on a Tuesday. You'll usually see a message from me coming out on e-content. Overdrive carts are ready to be ordered on a Tuesday, and I'll list the name of the carts. And so I am not the one who pushes the button on the ordering for ePool. It is done by somebody at the system. So depending upon if they're busy that day, what's going on as far as payroll or etc. It might be ordered the next day. She will also send out a note saying these carts are ordered. So it's not an instantaneous process. So I just wanted to let you know that. There's also a holds cart that is placed on the 21st typically. So that's an automated cart. With Advantage Plus, you're ordering for your library. So this is the most important thing I have to say. So if you purchase something in Advantage Plus, it starts on a Monday. It is yours exclusively until the following Monday when it gets shared with the consortia. Your patrons always have priority. If you order it on a Friday, let's say you order it on the 20th, it's still going to transfer over on the 23rd. So just something to remember. Your patrons still have priority, and that's why sometimes you'll move up and down on a waiting list because that copy might be coming from a library and not from the pool. And that's why you'll be like, wait a second, I thought I was number one for that copy. So just to let you know that. So that is something that I get asked a lot. So I'm going to reiterate it again. When you order for your library through your Advantage account, titles transferred to the consortia the following Monday. Your patrons have priority. So just remember this. And now I'm going to pass. Does anybody have any questions about RCLS ordering or anything like, pool ordering? Because I'm going to pass it on to Kristen, and she's going to talk more about the ordering process, how to make carts, the different access types. Okay, I'm going to stop my share, and I'd like to welcome Kristen.
Thank you, Patty. So for those I haven't met, my name is Kristen Price. I am your account manager here at Overdrive. I work with all RCLS members and really all New York Public Library partners. I think we're probably in almost everyone. And I'm partnered here with Claire, who is your digital content librarian. So we have a team of librarians on staff really specializing in the content itself. So if you have any questions about a specific title, Claire's your go-to. If she personally can't answer it, she can work with our metadata team, etc. Both of our contact information is available in Marketplace under the support tab. We also have a colleague, Nicole, who is the product support specialist, more of the technical person. She's representing us at an internal meeting today, so just Claire and I are here today. As Patty mentioned, I'm going to go over some of the basics of Marketplace while purchasing for Advantage. We're going to talk a little bit about what lending models are available to you, how to kind of decipher Marketplace in terms of how to determine if you already own a title, how many of your specific patrons are waiting on a copy, things like that, and also some of the actual process of creating and submitting an order. We'll review some of the most helpful reports, and then if we have time, some of the automated tools to streamline and create carts for you. I will also provide follow-up materials to Jen and Patty to send out or put on the intranet or internal page, the listserv, to share after the fact. If we don't get to everything today, I would ask you, please feel free to put something in a chat or smaller group, take yourself off mute. If you have specific questions, I am going to try to keep this to 45 more minutes. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And hopefully you all see Marketplace here. I did want to note, so Patty mentioned about the usernames and how to kind of decipher a little bit if you have a consortium login or the Advantage login. Also at the top of your page, and I'm going to go ahead and make this just slightly bigger because I know it's sometimes hard to see via Zoom. I just impersonated a random Advantage account. It will also specifically say your member library in addition to RCLS. If it just says Ramapo Catskill Library System, you're in a consortium account, meaning Nothing is prioritized to your home users. You're not logged into an Advantage account. So that's another quick way to decipher which account you're in if you have more than one. I also wanted to note, as Patty mentioned, with getting priority for these Advantage orders, that essentially means over holds and wait lists. So your patrons, anything you purchase in your Advantage account, your home users will skip over any other RCLS members. It's going to be prioritized to your home patrons first in terms of wait time. If there's no holds, it's kind of, and it's already been shared, it's first come, first serve, just like the system works is first come, first serve for everyone, but your patrons will always get priority over those holds in the wait list. So they'll get their hold fulfilled first over any other member. So I wanted to start really quickly, and I'm going to share another screen too and make sure you can see this one. I wanted to talk a little bit about lending models because we do have quite a few. I will note publishers set the lending models that they make their content available in. So unfortunately, Overdrive can't do everything about it. However, we do advocate to the publishers to try to offer as many lending models as possible so the library can choose what works best for them and their budget. So essentially, we have about 4 different lending models available across titles. The first one is what we call one copy, one user. That is very similar to physical items. You purchase one copy, one patron can borrow one copy at a time, and you have it for perpetual use. You never have to worry about it expiring. Believe it or not, this is majority of our catalog. It doesn't always feel that way because a lot of the big name publishers have gone metered access, which we'll talk about. But I will say probably close to 70–75% of our catalog is still that one copy, one user, which tends to be the ideal preference if you can help it. And then the following is a metered access lending model. So this typically just means that one patron can borrow still that individual copy at a time, but it's going to expire from your collection after a determined period. Now, there's a couple types of metered access models. The first might be metered access by time. This is what something like Simon & Schuster or Penguin Random House provides. They say, hey, you can buy this title, but it's only going to be active for 12 months or 24 months, and then you'd have to buy another copy. There's also publishers like HarperCollins that provide it for a certain number of uses. So they may say you're buying 26 licenses to use, and whether that takes 6 months or 5 years to get through those 26 licenses, the title is active for that period. I will say that tends to be a preferable lending model too, just because libraries know I can guarantee I'm getting all 26 uses before it goes anywhere, right? So I would say one copy, one user, and metered access by checkout or license tends to be preferable options. We do have a newer lending model, a new metered access lending model that we call metered access concurrent users. Now, there isn't a ton of titles in this. They tend to be more audiobooks and from publishers like Recorded Books, but it essentially says you're still buying a number of licenses. In this case, it's 100, but they can circulate simultaneously. So we do, I'll show you in Marketplace, we do clearly note whether it's one patron per copy or if it's more of a multi-user access. And speaking of multi-user, those are what our last 2 lending models are. So we have a cost per circ or pay per use, similar if you have a Hoopla or something like that. You can add a title free of charge and only pay a fee if it gets checked out. You do set a budget, so there's not runaway and you get a surprise invoice for $500. You do say, hey, I wanted to vote $50 to cost per circ, and these titles can circulate, but you'll still only be charged for what's actually used. So say you set a budget for $50, but only $20 gets circulated, you'll only be invoiced for $20. The nice thing about cost per circ at the Advantage level are those aren't able to be shared with the rest of the system. So you're not funding all of RCLS. If you utilize cost per circ, it will be limited to just your home users. And our last lending model is simultaneous use. So Not a ton of content available in this lending model in terms of an individual basis. They tend to be sold as packages, so maybe 25 or 50 or 100 titles per group for a flat rate for typically a year. And then it's unlimited access, unlimited copies. Your magazines that you provide are in this lending model, so there's no cap, everyone in the system. Typically with simultaneous use, you get more bang for your buck when doing it at the system consortium level because it's unlimited for everyone. But as Advantage users, there are options available for you. Really great if you're doing a book club or a community read, you might look into one of these multi-user options. And there are some publishers, I can think of Source Books in particular, that may offer a single title 30-day option. Most of them tend to be for a full year and 25 titles or more. But it's something that's really nice for audiobooks. Blackstone and Tantor offer those. But just something to think about. And the nice thing is you can kind of play them against each other. What makes more sense, to add this title as cost per circ or to purchase another metered access for a year license, things like that. We're going to get into Marketplace and look at it, but I just want to go over a couple more things and then we'll look at some real life examples. I wanted to talk about a little bit some of the information that appears under the specific title. So in other words, when you're looking at a search result or looking up a specific title, how to determine what everything says. So a couple things, you obviously have the cover art of the title. Right underneath that, we'll note the format, if it's an ebook or an audiobook, all of the metadata for the title. So the title, if it's part of a series, the publisher, the author. In the blue box, you'll see the lending model. So in this example, this is a metered access for 24 months. And one patron can borrow a copy at a time. That's why it says one user. And those are majority of our metered access. You can see the price of the title on the right-hand side above add to cart and how many units you want to add to a cart. And then if there is any ownership information, we will display that under that title metadata. So in this kind of box here, we break down how many copies there may be of a book, how many holds, and then also the checkout. So in this case, when we're looking at Advantage, we're going to see both the consortium and the Advantage. So in this case, we can see how many have been selected by that e-pool committee that Patty mentioned, how many realistic copies are floating out there, maybe shared from other members, etc. So in this example of The Other Black Girl, the title currently is $59.99. It's a metered access for 24 months, as stated in the blue box. You can find out more information. And then jumping down to kind of the ownership information here, we could see the top line represents the consortium, so all of RCLS. And as long as I am signed in with my Advantage account, this second Advantage line is going to just pertain to my collection and my users. So in this case, this consortium does not own any copies. So you could see it says one copy, one user, lending model 0, metered access lending model 0, CPC no, simultaneous use no. So again, that OCOU is one copy, one user, that non-expiring lending model. MA is going to represent metered access. So is it going to disappear after a set period of time? CPC, cost per circ, and SU, simultaneous use. So these are those 4 lending models. In this example, the Advantage account would own 2 copies, where RCLS would own 0. This is just a screenshot. It's not from RCLS, but in hypothetical terms. And then we have this Advantage Plus column. So in this case, these would be my 2 copies. It must have been after Monday, so my 2 copies were shared with the rest of the system already. And there are 26 copies total floating from other Advantage libraries. When we get into Marketplace, I'll also show you that anything with this blue circle is hyperlinked and you can click on for more information. So I would be able to specifically see which 26 other libraries own these copies and when did they share them. So you can see kind of where it's being prioritized. You could also click on your 2 owned copies to see when I bought them, in what order, when they're set to expire, etc. And the same with the hold. So in this case, this would represent there's 176 active holds throughout all of RCLS, 8 of which are my patrons. So 8 would represent just your local patron holdings compared to the whole picture. I also think that's really beneficial to see, because maybe in your head you have a threshold of, if 5 of my patrons are waiting, I'd like to buy an extra copy, or if 7 of my patrons are waiting. But realistically, there could be 300 waiting throughout RCLS. Maybe you only have 4 or 5 waiting, determining if it's worthwhile. There's a lot of other holds throughout the whole system. Realistically, how soon are they going to get those shared copies? So it's just good to kind of compare it against the full picture. And then in terms of checkouts, I just do want to note, so we have out represents currently checked out, the last the title circulated, how many checkouts were in the past year, and total. In terms of checked out, I do want to note, hopefully you're aware, but typically when libraries or patrons, excuse me, get their holds notification, they have 3 days to take action. They can decide if they want to borrow the title, if they want to cancel their hold, maybe they already purchased it elsewhere, or if they want to deliver later and move to the next person on the hold. I tend to do this. I always get my holds notifications when I'm in the middle of something else and I don't want to lose my place, but I'm not ready to borrow it now. I'll deliver later, have it go to another patron. We do not reflect a copy as out until it actually hits that borrow button. So sometimes you may see a little limbo where they're in their 3-day pickup window. You may say, I have 2 copies and it only looks like one of them is out. But there's holds on it. Typically they're in their pickup window and they just haven't formally selected borrow yet. Okay. So let me get back to Marketplace, and I just want to confirm that I'm sharing it. Okay, so I'm going to start with a couple things. So on the home page here, we always have a rotating banner, typically that highlights any current sales that we have going on. We always do our top titles coming out next month and so on. Claire and her team all help put these together. Going down on the homepage, we do feature sale content, just to let you know of how sale content appears. And at any point in the year, there are always sales going on. Our biggest one tend to be the end of year sale, which starts end of November through the end of the calendar year. We have our back to school sale that starts about mid-August and runs through the end of September. That typically highlights juvenile and young adult content, but also nonfiction, college prep, all that good stuff. And then we also have our audiobook sale, which runs the month of June and is our second biggest sale compared to the end of year sale. Typically, though, at this point, we have hundreds of thousands of titles that are included in these sales, 25 to 50% off. But when a title is on sale, we just launched our Black History Month sale. We'll typically cross out the original price and note the sale price, and we'll also note the date that it's on sale till. So that's a great thing to keep in mind. Oh, I only have till the middle of next month to buy this title before it goes back up to $50 or something like that. So we do kind of, I want to point out how our sale content appears. On the left-hand side, in addition to highlighting our sales, we also have our new year, new you sale that's going on that we always feature in January. But under must-haves, we also feature a bunch of other kind of pre-created lists, such as the weekly New York Times bestsellers for adult and juvenile and young adult, celebrity book clubs like Reese Witherspoon reads. We do hot picks of this week and next week, buzz books, all those other great resources. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. They're likely under the must-have list, and they always open up directly into Marketplace. So I'm going to click on this is technically next week's New York Times bestsellers. It might take a minute to load. I have a couple guesses of what might be at the top of these lists. Typically, they sort by most popular by sales. You can also filter these to say most popular across libraries, most recent street dates, so the newest titles. If you want to sort by titles that you have the most holds on, things like that, you can always change your searches here. Also on the left-hand side, you can drill down some of these searches. So this is in particular only has about 86 titles, but some lists can be hundreds and we don't want them to be too overwhelming. So you can always filter down here. Maybe I'm only interested in ebooks or a certain lending model. Maybe I'm a YA selector, so well, I clicked on an adult list, but if I was, I could drill down by audience, by release date, things like that. And if you click on things, it'll kind of drill down that search. In this example here of lessons in chemistry, it's been on the bestseller list for a while. Penguin Random House has started something since the pandemic, and they're continuing at least through March. They kind of give us a 3-month window extension at a time. But they have been offering some flexible lending options. So typically, Penguin Random House's lending model is metered access for 2 years. New releases cost about $55. And we can see that that is an option. But alternatively, they're also offering a 12-month for half the cost. So in this case, you can pick which lending model you want. That's not always an option. Some publishers like Penguin Random House do offer that. So in this case, especially for your Advantage account, maybe you want to say the cheaper the better. I always want to default to the least expensive one. You can also say, look at the title itself. Maybe it's been out for 6 months. I don't have to go with the full 2 years. Maybe demand's about to die down, things like that. Or if you're buying additional copies, maybe you want to start with one for 2 years and then only do one going forward. But in this case, you have to pick one before you can add it to a cart. So in this case, there's nothing I can do here, but I can click, I want the 27, and now I can add to cart. And typically, I don't have a cart created, so my only option is to add to new cart. We always recommend naming the cart something that you'll remember what's in it. So often, if you have multiple selectors, maybe you want to put your initials and pick ebooks, Jan, or something that you'll remember. You can add a description. I'm going to go ahead and pin it as my main cart and hit create. And now you'll see I get a little success in the upper corner, but I'll also see my current cart. It'll move with you going down the page. And you can actually have up to 5 pinned carts kind of in production at a time and be adding to them. Great thing is if you have a different budget for ebook or audiobook or a different budget for adult and JYA, maybe you want to keep them separate as you're building carts just to keep on track. You can, of course, just work off one cart. You can merge them. It's really what works best for you. And in this case, I wanted to kind of talk about this information. So we saw that our only options are metered access. That's all. A 1-copy, 1 user isn't an option. So that's why it's kind of zeroed out here. I will say because of my screen size, some of the words are getting cut off, but for the most part, you can see consortium and Advantage. In this case, the consortium does own 10 copies. It's that blue circle, so I can actually click on it and see when all these copies were bought and when they expire. So that's helpful. I know, hey, we have at least one that's going to be around till 2024. So it's going to be in the collection for a while, but you can kind of see that information there. In this case, as an Advantage user, I do not own a copy. Again, it's because 0 on the Advantage line. But I can see that 2 of my patrons have a hold on it. Again, I can click on this. It'll actually redirect me to part of the current holds tool, and you can find out information about those patrons, including when their holds were placed, to confirm the branch so that they're active, and you can even see the barcode of the user. Okay, so that's really helpful. You can get an idea of how long they've been waiting. In this case, there are addition to those 10 kind of shared pool copies, there are another 50 copies that were shared from other Advantage users. So realistically, there's 60 copies of this book floating out there. Because I only have 2 patrons, I typically wouldn't recommend buying this for your Advantage account. I would maybe spend my money elsewhere, but the choice is yours. There are 369 holds across all of RCLS, okay, compared to my 2, okay? And you can click on this 50 and see which Advantage members shared how many copies and when. So a ton of data available in Marketplace. We try to layer it a little bit so you're not too overwhelmed every time, but anything with that blue circle you can click on for more information, okay? Is there any questions at this point in terms of how to read the information under the titles in just a search view? Okay, I'm gonna, oh, there are some chats. Hang on one second. Yes, Patty, I can mention that. Patty also mentioned that the ePool typically tries to maintain a ratio of 7. So for every 7 holds out there, having at least 1 copy. Obviously, as I mentioned, it depends on the popularity of a book. You know, is it they're coming out with a Netflix show and there's kind of a resurgence, or is the popularity dying down? It's been out for a couple years, etc. That may kind of be a factor into some of them. Also, I will note, let me see if I can find one of these. It depends on ebook and audiobook too. Some audiobooks tend to be a bit more expensive. So being able to, maybe you want to keep your holds at a different ratio for ebooks and audiobooks. Here's an example for, we just looked at lessons in chemistry and my options were 24 months or 2 years for $55 or 1 year for $27.50. In terms of audiobooks, we could do 1 year for $47.50, or you can do that perpetual use, but it is $95. So audiobooks do tend to be significantly more expensive, but I will say almost all audiobooks offer a non-expiring option. So that kind of permanent 1 copy, 1 user. So some libraries like to be able to mix it up. It is nice to be able to do at least 1. So in this case, we can see there's at least 1 permanent copy, that 1 copy, 1 user in the collection. There's another 4 copies that are metered access, and there's 25 copies shared from other Advantage libraries, okay? So realistically, there's 30 copies of this title floating out there. For my 2 patrons, again, probably wouldn't be a title that I decide to purchase. Okay, I am gonna scroll back up just to circulate it by most holds, just so you can see a little bit different of an experience. Okay, so not a ton of use of these libraries. The most is 2 holds. So personally, probably nothing on this list might be worth buying, but it's up to you. And it's up to what your goals are for your branch. So especially with Advantage accounts, some really like to focus on patron-driven acquisition. So holds, recommendations, this is what my patrons are specifically asking for, where some libraries focus more on the depth of the collection. So is there another copy floating out there? Or you know, I've read a review on this. I know it's going to be popular amongst my patrons, and buying it more proactively. Okay. I am going to show you real quick. If you just do this, top bar can work almost like a Google search. You could put in the title and the author. Let's talk about Spare, because everyone is, and that's where a lot of the demand is in the last week. So we do have the ebook and audiobook of Spare. In this case, man, I was hoping to see. So in this case, there is 340 holds on the audiobook throughout the group, and 0 at this particular library. But again, it's a Penguin Random House, so you can pick your options on kind of what you want to purchase there. If I decide that I'm set with my cart, this is the one that I want to do. You can click on the cart on the right-hand side. You can also click on it up at the top under carts. Here's my pinned cart. And I can do a last minute review right at the top, a great place to see if you intended to buy more copies than you, if you're purchasing more copies than you intended, excuse me, is the number of units, which represents copies, and titles. So in this case, I only have one. A great way to check too, you can always say set all copies or set all titles to one copy. So if you want to do a last minute check, make sure that I'm not buying more copies than I want, you can use this tool here. And then it'll give you a summary of the total, be fulfilling, etc. And if you continue to scroll down, you see information that we saw on that other screen. So first few columns are the metadata. We can see that it's an ebook. We picked metered access 12 months. We can see information like the on sale date, street date is the publication date, so when it came out. This was a 2022 release. I don't have this in my Advantage copy yet, so it says NA. If I did previously own a copy, it would let me know the first date I purchased it. Same with expired. I can see those 10 consortium copies. I don't own any yet. Continue to go down, I could see the 50 shared from other libraries, all of the holds, recommendations, all that good stuff. If I decide I'm ready to purchase, the next course of action is purchase cart. But don't worry, this isn't going to do anything automatically. We want to make it easy enough to purchase, but not too easy that you can do it by accident. So even just purchasing cart won't do anything. You do have to confirm a few checkboxes before your order can be processed. So in this case, we do some disclaimers letting you know if you're purchasing metered access titles. We also include, this is another great way to confirm if you're in your Advantage account. This is an Advantage order. Titles will only be available to users of your library unless you participate in Advantage Plus, which you do, but your libraries will have priority. You agree that this order is final. Typically, we cannot process any returns because we make titles available within a matter of hours to those patrons, especially if they're things like holds. So we do want to make you very sure that you're ready with this order. We let you know that they're available within 24 hours. Typically, it's within a matter of a few hours. I would say maybe about 4, but it depends on the traffic of the site. As Penny mentioned, Tuesdays are big publication days. Tuesdays and Fridays tend to be our busier days, so it may take a little longer for titles to show up on your site or in the app to patrons. We say it could take up to 24 hours. So if you're within that 24-hour window, it's still processing and there's technically not anything we can really do to speed it up. If it's beyond 24 hours, please let us know it's an error and we'll do some refreshing on the back end. You'll notice that I can't complete my order. I have to confirm these checkboxes before I can do anything, okay? And then you can always choose if you want to pay with a credit card. Just Bill My Account will generate an invoice in about 2 business days. You will get an email and it also will be posted under this billing tab, View Invoices, okay? So that is the actual purchasing process. Adding titles to a cart, very similar to any online shopping experience, Amazon, etc. Adding to a cart, checking out, but just wanted to include some of those disclaimers about processing time, etc. Okay, one quick thing that Patty wanted me to touch base on while we're still talking about lending models in terms of cost per serve. So because RCLS does share their other lending models, their one copy, one user, and metered access on a weekly basis with everyone else. If you already have a title of a book that has been shared with the rest of the system, so for instance, you purchased a copy, it's shared, but that demand just keeps growing, and now I want to offset it with some of those costs per serve. It is possible, because we limit cost per circ to only your home users, that a non-Advantage patron, a patron from another library, may see that there is a copy available, but when they go to borrow it, they'll be prompted to place a hold instead, because that CPC copy is not available for them. Unfortunately, there's no real workaround at this time unless we were to fully separate all the lending models, and you would see 1 copy of spare, 1 copy when user, 4 copies of spare and metered access, 1 copy of spare and CPC, which would probably be an even worse user experience. It is something our developers are aware of, but the only kind of workaround right now is if that Advantage library wanted to remove their CPC access. Again, it is a very specific situation. You have to own that title in another lending model, and you have to have already shared it. So if you want to add cost per circ for maybe things that you haven't purchased yet, no harm, no foul. There'll be no ill experience for anyone else. It's just if you already own a metered access or 1 copy, 1 user copy, and it already paired with the system. So Monday has, okay. Okay, so moving on from lending models and building carts, I wanted to talk a little bit. We talked about some of the available kind of pre-created lists on the left-hand side. We do have under this featured tab as well, even more lists and a redirect. So we have one of our YA experts in here, but if you scroll down, we maybe have top books of the month, recently heard on NPR, Book Talk, etc. A lot of great kind of series starters, things like that. But you do have the option to, if not under the featured tab, under the support tab, we have a resource center, which has a million how-to videos and pre-created lists and marketing materials. And I do just want to briefly touch base on it. In terms of getting started, we have, if you go to library and staff training, the how-to videos are my favorite section. We do have on-demand webinars and live webinars that our training team hosts every month. But our how-to videos, we have a whole section on Marketplace, in particular, getting started. Everything about individual lending models. We have specific ones on managing Advantage in Marketplace with best practices. So I really want to refer you to these additional resources because I only am touching base on a small, and I'm kind of going a little fast today. So there's also downloadable PDFs to contribute, but everything from running reports to under this getting started, there's see all, there's redefining and understanding your search results, creating and editing carts, reviewing and purchasing carts, which we went over. And some of these may only be a couple minutes long. If it's a bit more in depth, like managing your entire Advantage account, which is going to touch base on kind of what we're talking about today, searches and reports and all that good stuff, that's closer to 30 minutes. But all available on demand. Anyone on your staff can access these. It doesn't require a login. And that's just resources.overdrive.com. And also under here is this collection development section that Claire and her team have put together. So this is one of my favorite places. So really great for getting started beyond the bestsellers and holds. What do I buy? Great curation ideas too. So some of my favorite are read-alike lists. We know they say Colleen Hoover is going to be the new James Patterson and come out with books all the time. So while you're waiting for one of her books, who else can we read? Who's similar to her? So always one of my favorites. I'm sure she's on here somewhere. If not, there's other series read-alikes, Ruth Ware and everything else, and Bryce read-alikes, etc. Trending topics is another one that's one of my favorites. So the latest and greatest. Things like Let's Get Books. It's award season. So all books inspired by the Oscar nods or Golden Globes or things like that. And all of these open directly into Marketplace. So this one might be a shorter list. It's just 20 titles, but it is Oscar nominated films based on books. So that's an awesome idea for a curated collection, but also to make sure you have them all, right? People are going to be streaming these movies. It's a great idea to have the book available too. So again, this is just our resource center, resources.overdrive.com. Anyone in staff can access those. And we do link to it from Marketplace as well. And I mentioned my email and extension, as well as Claire and Nicole, all available under this support tab in Marketplace. You can also contact our technical support, our authentication support, which will be more of RCLS, but also invoicing, so our accounting team. So you can open these and get in direct touch with all of our other teams, the 3 of us. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit. We talked about how to read kind of under the titles if we have patrons waiting, how many copies, etc. You can always click on this Overdrive Marketplace to get back to the homepage. But I also want to talk about some of our search options. So as I mentioned, if you're looking for a specific author and title, feel free to use this top bar almost like a Google search. But we do have our advanced search as well. So say I want something a little bit widespread. I'm looking for YA ebooks that were released in the last year or something like that. So again, you can search for titles or a series, or if you have a time, which is huge. But you can get into things like audience. So I had mentioned maybe I'm looking for young adults. I am looking for just ebooks. So I'm going to click the ebook. And I'm going to keep scrolling down and looking for things that were just released in the last year. So I could put in an actual calendar year if I want. I can also say what came out in the last week, in the last 2 weeks, in the last month. In this case, I'm going to look at this last year. So it's going to run from January 17th of 2022 through today. You can filter by certain lending models or prices. Maybe I only want to see titles under $40. Holdings here is great if you want to filter down for things that may already be owned in the consortium or Advantage account. And then you can also search by holds here. So maybe I want to see things that have a hold with my patron. In this case, I'm looking for new content, so I'm not going to do this first time, but moving forward, I can say, show me everything with a minimum of 1 hold. I'm not going to do that in this case because there's probably not filters, but I have a few options. If this is something that I'm going to want to look for on a reoccurring basis, I recommend saving your search. So you can say in this case, YA ebooks last year, something that you'd remember what you're coming back to, and you can pin this search and save it. And in this case, I'm just going to search for these. Maybe probably did too broad of a search. a lot of YA ebooks last year. Should have narrowed it down. And again, this is a great way. Yep, 10,000. So again, it's going to be by default the most popular, but you can filter it a few ways. And in this case, I can confirm my searches. I did young adult ebook for the last year that are under $40. So you could filter this down more, but this just kind of gives you a feel of how to use advanced search. Also with pinning the search, I'm going to go back to my home page. It's also now on my home page under Save Searches. I could see my YA ebooks last year. Say I come into Marketplace the month from now, I can hit this, and it's going to run that same updated search. If I come in from a month from now, it's going to start February 2022 on, okay? But a great tool to use for holds as well. So another one I'm going to do is pretty general, but I'm just going to search for any titles that my patrons have at least 2 holds on. So I'm going to do Advantage holds minimum 2. And in this case, I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to say 2 plus, I think I was in Roscoe's account. So I'm going to say 2 plus Roscoe patrons, just something you'll remember. You could put a description in there and save. And real quick before I run that search, I'm going to go back to my home page and show you that now we have both of those on the left-hand side. and I could just come in, click that, and at any time it's going to run that for me. So I don't have to filter another search. There's only 4 titles. And pending means that it's currently in a cart. So you could actually click on this and see my KP Fic ebooks, etc. So that is, I would definitely recommend, if you don't have a saved search, save yourself some time, set one up. I'm going to follow up with some more materials, direct links to those how-to videos I mentioned, because there's a lot other we didn't talk about. We can do another follow-up. Feel free to reach out to Claire or myself if there's a specific question that we didn't cover. But hopefully at least some of the basics, feel like it was covered, talked a little bit more about lending models, actually creating a search and creating a cart, and kind of what that looks like and how to read the information to determine if your patrons own a title, if you have it in your Advantage account, etc. So we're about 3 minutes left. Any outstanding questions? I'm going to stop sharing my screen that I maybe didn't cover.
Do you think it's
really.
easier, Kristen, to have a saved search on your holds or to run the report?
It depends what you want to see. So some libraries like seeing that cover art. Maybe it registers a little bit more for them to see the search results, etc. I will say from the holds report, you can filter it a little bit more. You can put just your branch. Obviously we did that here, but if you're more of a numbers person, you could always click on the title to see the cover art. It's your preference. If you're really just going in there to look at holds, feel free to do the current holds report. That way it also kind of saves your settings. You can filter the column so it's descending by holds. Really the preference is cover arts. I think that's the main difference. Some people just actually like seeing, it clicks more when they see the cover of the title.
Okay, and when you get that ratio, does that include the suspended holds?
So I don't believe so. I believe, I'm going to double check, but I believe holds ratio. So for the consortium, that's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. So with the consortium, it's essentially looking at everyone. So it's going to look at the total number of holds divided by total number of copies, both in the shared collection and those shared by Advantage members that are available to everyone. From the Advantage library, it's only looking at your Advantage holds over all of the consortium copies, all of the shared copies, and any copies you own in your Advantage account. I will say for Advantage holds ratio, because in particular, I don't think it tells a telling picture.
All right, Kristen, you just blipped out at like a very important thing you were saying. It's like the one thing
Am
I
I
wanted
back?
to learn.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
back up a little bit.
Yep. So in terms of Advantage holds ratio, and let me actually real quick, I'm just going to pull up.
Are you going to cover those reports more in the second one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So real quick, in this case, okay, so are you seeing lessons in chemistry again? Okay, so there are 60 copies floating out there that are available to all patrons, 10 of which are first come, first serve. Those are the consortium, another 50 from Advantage. Now, those are going to be prioritized to their own home users, okay? There are 367 holds over those 60 copies. So that ratio is hanging out at about a little over 6, okay? In this case, we can see that there's 2, but it's looking at just your 2 holds over those 60. Now, mind you, they're not taking into account the 365 other patrons that are waiting for those same 60 copies. So personally, with Advantage accounts, I recommend looking at the number of holds over the holds ratio, because the Advantage holds ratio is always going to be lower than it actually seems. Because again, it's not taking into account all of the other patrons that are also waiting on those shared copies.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. Thank you. That clears things up.
Of course. Yeah, so especially
Because,
for,
I mean, sometimes at the top of my list that like I might at max have like 4 holds, and I try to buy those because I feel like those people could wait a long time.
yes, so that's another great thing. Even if you have, say, 5 in mind, or Patty mentioned 7 in mind, but if there's another 300 floating out there, even if it's only 4, maybe it makes sense to add it, because realistically, how quickly are my 4 patrons going to get it?
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Of course. And Patty, I hope I can come to the next advantage training, because I think there's a lot more that we can come, and hopefully maybe people can go into the advanced session as well as they feel
Yeah,
more
we have
comfortable.
19 people waiting, so Jen
Oh, good.
already left to go into the next
Okay.
meeting.
All
So,
right.
we'll see you there if you want to come and join us. If not, thank you, and reach out to Kristen and Claire. They're valuable resources. Or reach out to me if you have any questions as well.
Please
Take care,
do.
and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.